Hello, I'm Anna Dellman. It is day number 140 of my note writing journey, and Sundays means it's time for me to review what has happened the week before. Now friends, I do need to point something out to you. I have a little visitor in the room I'm in, and it is a very hot day. It is our spring heading towards summer, and it is hot. There's a fly buzzing around. I've tried to get it out and it's not going anywhere. It is smarter than me for the time being. So if you see it buzzing around, please, it's as much an irritation to me as I'm sure it is to you if you're watching it. But anyway, it could be kind of fun to see how many times it gets involved in this discussion. So day number 134 is virtue. Now virtue today does not mean the same as it did years ago. Today we kind of think of a virtuous person as a goody two-shoes, that they always want to have the appearance of doing what is right. Virtue in the biblical context means hands-on involvement in the messiness of life. You decide and choose to do the morally, ethically compassionate, good things to encourage another person. It calls for you to be a trustworthy character, because you need to entrust yourself and call on another person to trust you, being involved in their life, in the messiness of their struggle or whatever's going on, and you show them compassion. Some simple examples: helping an old lady cross the street, vacuuming somebody's home, mopping their floors, taking out their trash, wiping a snotty nose. It's the practical things. It's when people ask for help in doing something like in a church social event, you get involved in washing the dishes. Now there are many people who like to put on the appearance of being virtuous, and usually they're the ones who are at every church gathering, and they are there to supervise and to look the part. They aren't the real part. If you've been watching this for the amount of time I've been doing this, you know I find those kind of people hard to deal with, and they are just a thorn in my side. But anyway, day number 135 was add to your faith. We discussed virtue on day 134. So virtue, knowledge, self-control, perseverance, godliness, brotherly affection, and love. And why is all of that necessary? It's the evidence of your knowledge of God. And when it's from 2 Peter 1 verses 4 through 9, when scripture says add to your faith, it means go out, do the work, learn it, study it, figure out what you need to do and what you need to be. Virtue can be hard to learn, but when you're in the trenches of life with other people, it is one of the most sweet places to be. It calls for diligence, eagerness, and precision and preciseness in what you are doing to be involved in other people's lives. So day number 136 was better place, better conditions. What is your right to have and hold? What do you believe you're entitled to? Those discontent moments in our lives, do you think you should have had something better or something different? And if you are working on a path of reinvigorating your life, or restructuring your life, or repatterning your life, and you come to a point where it's not looking the way it should, did you really do the work? And that was an admonition of myself, that I could be further along in certain projects that I've been working on, but I'm not. And why? It's because as much as I like to think I've done the work, if I take a step back and I have a good hard look, I haven't been as diligent in that as I should have been. Now when it comes to my exercising and my diet and everything to get back up to optimum living, to where I want to be at the end of this 365-day journey, exercise I'm doing well. I can now go for a half an hour walk and do good. I don't have any abdominal discomfort when the walk is done. Friends, it's no great difficult path that I walk. It's mostly flat terrain with a very gentle incline. I do want this week to see if I can do the hill. We live on a hill, and then it goes down into a wash and then up. I want to see if I can do the up section. It's quite steep, but I want to try. If a few yards into it and I am feeling uncomfortable, I will turn around and head back. So day number 137 is when things aren't working the way it should, based on the discontent and did I really do the work of the day before? Revise, rework, and rewrite. Put up guardrails. Put up those things and the accountability you need in your life to venture forward so that you can with confidence and you can accomplish what you need doing. We need to establish that in our lives if we are working through a period of time where life has not been gentle with us. Mine, it's years of bad health, recovering from surgery. For other people, it could be that they've been doing very well in life and then something happens and they fall off the wagon and etc. and then they need help getting back up for a season of time. When the guardrails are put up, we need to consider the path we're walking on, the path we're walking through. Where are we on the journey? Is it just a narrow path, a wide path? And the guardrails need to be in line with that. What do you need protection from? And that is the strength of the rails that you need to put up for yourself. Day number 138, I continued with that. Accountability equals guardrails. Find it, cultivate it, disciplines to encourage. Now, when you are looking for accountability and you want to do it in community, you need to make sure that you are able to be vulnerable in that situation and with those people. You need to make the commitment as much as you expect your mentor, discipler, encourager to be vulnerable and make the commitment to you. They and you need to be relational and you need to be honest with them. Then decide if you need it short term or long term. Again, it depends on the trajectory. Is this just a relapse, or you found yourself maybe getting back into old patterns and you want to correct them right away? Reliability, you need mutual reliability, check-in schedules, when you're going to hold yourself accountable, etc. And patience to manage the setbacks we all get. Now, as much as I said that, I also did mention that there does come a time in life where we need to realize that if we always needing to have those guardrails, those training wheels in life, there's something deeper wrong with us than we realize. We shouldn't always have to have those guardrails up. If your core, your cornerstone, your foundation isn't able to sustain you in what you're working through, or you're able to take a step back onto that platform and take a breather and then move forward, you are putting your trust in the wrong thing. Guardrails should always be for a season. It shouldn't be our life's pattern of dependence on everybody being there for us to pick us up all the time, every time, day and night. If that is how you're functioning, then your struggle, your problem is your image that you want projected. Your image that you say you want is the holistic you moving forward, achieving your goals, is not what you want. You like the attention, etc., of being left in that struggle with always guardrails around you. Now then, as I've said before, if you're on a long-term trajectory and you are overcoming some horrendous things in your life, of course you're going to have those guardrails in a counseling experience, a mentoring, discipling experience. However, you as the person being encouraged with the guardrails, as you become more confident, you will want those guardrails to move away. A wise counselor, mentor, discipler will encourage you not to be as dependent on them as you learn to walk forward on your own. And that is what a good counselor, discipler, mentor should want from you. Day number 139 was on yesterday. When the rush of the day is done, what would you have done differently, if anything, in your day? Now, I did mention I went to our equivalent of a state or a county fair. It was an agricultural event, and goodness, those animals were huge. The bulls, I couldn't believe how large they were, although they were corralled and tied up with harnesses, etc. I made sure I stayed far enough, because if one of those decided to have a bad moment, it wouldn't have been pretty. They were huge. The bulls were twice the size of the cows. However, that isn't what I was left thinking about when I brought up the question of yesterday. I, a few times in walking around the showgrounds, saw somebody that I kind of sort of knew, but I wasn't sure. And then afterwards I realized, yeah, I did know her, but she was out of context. Being at the showgrounds with a group of people is not where she should have been. She should have been in another professional environment where I got to know her many, many years before. Now, she didn't look at me twice because she wouldn't have recognized me. Friends, I don't look anything like I did, referring to the period of time that my path crossed with hers. It was the year before COVID. And we were both involved in a social grant, brainstorming, writing for a proposal that we were working on to benefit disabilities in a broad spectrum. And that's when last I saw her. Then I was skinny. I had very long, very, very bleached blonde hair, and I looked completely different. I chose not to approach her simply because I had spent the morning that I was at the showgrounds at different vendors who were there in their marketing areas, and just talking to some of the people and celebrating that this was the first time I'd been back at the showgrounds since prior to COVID, because my health had been so bad and I wouldn't have been able to walk a few yards. Prior to July 2024. And it was such a wonderful time of sharing testimony, of being encouraged, of encouraging others. I used all those experiences in my life to encourage people who would find themselves in that kind of professional capacity, taking care of ill people. So it was health and social services, etc. When I worked for disabilities, I did encounter some of them there, social workers, etc., and always want to encourage them further. I chose not to speak to this woman or acknowledge her, the one who was in a group part of a social grant writing process, because I didn't want to distract from the joy and the sweetness of testimony that had been going on in the time I had been there. If I had to speak with her, I would have had to explain where I was, why I had no longer been involved in those programs, and I didn't want to focus on the negative, on the bad health. It's better to have encountered people who I could just share the celebration of recovery with, rather than all the bad stuff. So friends, when we get to cross paths with people who we think we know but we're not sure, you don't always have to acknowledge them. Sure, it would be gracious if we did, but sometimes for our own position, what we are trying to cultivate in our lives, it is best to take the next step and move on. Now, if I ever did get involved in social grant writing and involved in that organization again, I would say, by the way, was that you there that day? And I would bring it up in a different context. So we are not always expected to have to greet everybody and be friends with everybody all the time, as long as we are being gracious and we're being kind and we are practicing the virtue, the knowledge, the self-control, the perseverance, the godliness, the brotherly affection. That means being gracious to all around you in a loving manner. And I do believe that's what I accomplished with everybody else who was there at the showgrounds, whom I encountered. And it was a delightful experience and a delightful difference to my day. So friends, that is it for this week. I'm looking forward to this coming week, where I am going to be disciplining my time in a greater way to start actually writing, continuing to work on the outline which I formed this past week of a book on church life, which I'm so looking forward to do, to be of an encouragement to all of us, friends. Church can be a very difficult place to be and a very hard place, and I don't want if you've had a negative experience, I don't want that to be what defines who and what you are. I want what God says about you to be that which is definitive of your life, your character, and your destiny. So until tomorrow, take care and God bless, and we will talk again. Bye-bye for now.